Chers amis, 145 participants au 11e Forum de jeunes du scoutisme mondial sont parmi nous à la conférence. Le forum a eu lieu la semaine dernière à Blumenau, comme nous sachons. Ces derniers jours, le comité de préparation du forum de jeunes a travaillé sans relâche pour produire les rapports et toutes les recommandations du forum. Nous sommes heureux de pouvoir vous les présenter maintenant. J'invite le jeune conseiller au pupitre, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Dear sisters and brothers in Scouting, we are very happy to present a report of such a successful event. But before I ask Fernanda to share with us how successful it exactly was, I would like to tell you about the excellent performance of young delegates at the World Scout Youth Forum. Not only did they ensure that the final outcomes are what forum substantially needed, but the level of communication and cooperation within the region, as well as with other regions, is outstanding, and we should admire them. At this point, I would also like to thank all those who supported their delegates to the 11th World Scout Youth Forum, and I'm very sure you recognize the great ideas of change and readiness that these young people have. So, Fernanda?
Thank you, Milena. The forum had a total of 244 participants in the following categories: 145 delegates and observers from 67 NSOs, 2 World Scout Committee members. Thank you, John and Mario, for the contribution. 8 members of the Planning Committee, 8 members of the World Scout Bureau, 2 interpreters, 6 guests, including 2 young people from the Scout Association of Macau, 1 representative of the Young Men's Christian Association, 1 representative of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, 1 representative from the International Award Association, and 1 representative from the Inter-American Youth Network. Participants attended the 11th World Scout Youth Forum from 6 WASM regions as follows: 18 from the Africa region, 11 from the Arab region, 34 from the Asia-Pacific region, 5 from the Eurasian region, 65 from the European region, and 37 from the Inter-American region. I am also very pleased to announce our draft evaluation numbers. The numbers were based on the 143 response out of 145 participants. That is a rate of 99% response papers. Thank you. It gets better. In a scale of 1 to 10, on the overall satisfaction with the World Scout Youth Forum was rated as follows: 77% of the participants scored the satisfaction level above 7. Thank you. With 24% of them in the range of 9 to 10, and 53% in the range of 7 to 8. 14% of the scores fell in the range of 5 to 6, with only 10% of the response being under 4. When asked about the intention to recommend the Youth Forum to other friends or colleagues in Scouting, the Net Promoter score of the 11th World Scout Youth Forum is 45%. That means that there are 40% more promoters of the World Scout Youth Forum than detractors of it. Regarding reports, the youth advisors of the World Scout Committee reported their activities in the triennium 2008-2011 and outlined the follow-up on the 10th World Scout Youth Forum recommendations since Korea. Also, on this forum, a number of recommendations were adopted regarding more extensive consideration and evaluation of the recommendations and conclusions from previous forums during the World Scout Youth Forum. Regional youth advisors also reported to the 11th World Scout Youth Forum, and their reports are on Scout.org, translated to English and French. Paddle Your Own Canoe was the theme chosen to give basis to the working themes during the forum. The topics of the forum were dealt in 3 phases of progression. Explore, where participants had the opportunity to share information and acquired knowledge on the issues dealt in the agenda. Develop, where participants were able to gain skills for working sessions. And respond, when participants were invited to make commitments. I'd like to ask my friend Karen to give more inputs on the working methods of the 11th World Scout Youth Forum.
Thank you, Fernanda. The forum used 2 main working themes to guide the work during the week. Youth empowerment, which dealt with youth involvement both in Scouting and in society in general. The other one was Scouting as a worldwide movement. This explored the international dimension of Scouting. These 2 themes were dealt with in a very many different ways, through workshops, through presentations, through discussion groups, and many other methods. Moreover, time was allocated for regional meetings during the forum. This provided opportunity for participants to address regional matters of interest. During the forum, we also saw some very captivating presentations. We had the World Scout Moot in Kenya 2010 presented. We had a presentation on the World Scout Jamboree in Sweden to be held this summer, and also on the World Scout Moot to be held in Canada in a few years' time. Some best practices were also presented by NSOs, noting here the experience of Mexico at the World Youth Conference and COP16. And finally, I'm very pleased to observe that the forum was web-streamed online for the first time of the forum. This remains amazing interest, with just about 500,000 clicks on the web page in only 4 days. So in general, we ended up having a very busy week in Blumenau. And at this point, on behalf of all the planning committee, I would like to recognize and thank the host committee and all the Brazilian staff for the amazing contribution they made during that week. It would not have been possible without them. Please let's give them a big applause. Thank you very much. And next, Nadia will tell us something more details regarding the discussions that took place during the forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we had an introductory session on youth involvement, which brought the attention to participants on the complexity of these issues regarding, for example, matters on defining an age for young people, the cultural difference that exists, intergenerational dialogue, as well as inclusion of youth involvement in the youth program. Later in the forum, we discuss and we consider the vision on youth involvement that the Educational Methods Committee prepared for this conference, which is document number 14, in which participants divided into groups and established a roadmap towards achieving these visions in 2020. Regarding rights of young people, an overall overview on the concept of rights of young people was presented and how these rights are dealt in some parts of the world. For example, Ibero-American Convention and also the Charter from Africa. Participants then divided into discussion groups and dealt with the issue on which youth rights should be very important for young people, and also how Scouting should help to achieve these youth rights and what Scouting role is. We had also a session on life skills, which allowed participants to identify the essential life skills necessary to play an active role and meaningful role in constructing the better society we all want. We also explore if Scouting is still offering these life skills that participants identified as that important. And as a conclusion, the most needed were identified as creative thinking, self-confidence and self-awareness, leadership-based communication, and critical thinking. To enhance participant empowerment, a session on how to effectively express and communicate ideas into the form of a motion was developed, and also a document was prepared called From an Idea to a Recommendation. This document contains explanation on how to start from an idea that we feel is important. We can communicate accordingly to achieve this motion or resolution that we all use in these environments. As a result of this session, we had 30 draft recommendations presented for the recommendation session, and it's to be noted that participants could handle all these 30 recommendations appropriately and very effectively in the last day of the forum in the recommendation session. Thank you. Regarding the strategy for Scouting, it was introduced with a video, short video, and then we divided into discussion groups where participants dealt to see if the outcomes expected for the strategy for each strategic priority were achieved or not. As a conclusion, they think that these strategic priorities are still important for the movement, but some more work needs to be done. Regarding the governance review, there was a presentation on which the core issues were dealt by the Governance Review Task Force and the subsequent constitutional amendments that are proposed to this conference. And also this was compared with some other positions on all these issues. Participants then discussed in groups those topics and especially focused on the role of the Youth Forum and the Youth Advisors. It's to be noted that participants still believe that the Youth Forum and the Youth Advisors are an interim measure, and it should not be changed into something definitely. It was considered that the proposal of the World Scout Committee is an effective tool for an intermediate action, but another possibility could be to limit the age of candidates to the World Scout Committee. It was also noted that it should be ideally one event where young people and adults could come all together here and have discussion in benefit of both groups. Regarding Tell the Story, this was a session in which participants learned key concepts on how to represent the Scout movement, and they analyzed the perception that wider society has of our image as Scouts. Participants recognize that there are some contradictions in what we preach and what we do. For example, we say we are a piece of force, but there are images of Scouts in Scout uniform holding weapons. We call us our movement of interest, challenging activities. We promote it with very beautiful jamborees, but then that's not the actual reality of every week basis activity. And also, another contradiction noted was that we call this a youth movement with youth involvement, and there are still a lot of positions that are in hold only for adults. Also, there are still some barriers to consider that Scouting is open to everyone. These barriers were identified as religion, registration fees, uniforms, and so on. It was noted that the Scout movement is old-fashioned, and that to achieve a change in wider society on our image, the communication strategy could be considered as the strategy for growth in each NSO. Revitalizing the Scout program was the session in which participants reflected upon the Scout program, divided into 4 age sections, especially on the impact that the Scout program has in society. The commitment session challenged participants to make a reflection about their futures. They identified the actions they need to undertake to make sure they achieve their desirable future. Last but not least, the future of Scouting was a challenging activity in which participants reflect on their own ideas through the symbolic framework of the canoe represented our current status of our movement, agreeing on the changes that we should make all together in order to navigate in the waters of the future. You can see the conclusions of this sticked on the wall of the exhibition area. Participants suggested that Scouting should prepare itself to face the future challenges ahead by improving its communication methods both inside and outside the movement in order to transmit our message to the world. Young participants at the forum also would like to see an even more open-minded and flexible organization, constantly growing by embracing changes and becoming the front lines of innovation. To do so, new attractive, relevant, and Scout programs, including a greater involvement of young people and introducing new technologies, should be designed. And now I will leave Jamin to give you some inputs on the open forum.
Good morning, everyone. Bom dia. Now let me introduce the open forum of the 11th World Scout Youth Forum. During the 11th World Scout Youth Forum, participants were able to propose their own discussion topics. The main objective at this time was to give participants a chance their ideas and good practices on subjects of their choice. The participants made great innovations, and they showed great initiative in proposing topics themselves, and they were able to take advantage of this opportunity to openly debate recommendations of the 11th World Scout Youth Forum. Now, 7 forum topics were proposed, and they are listed as the following: active participation in the global society through Scouting, environmental issues and conservation strategy, young spokespeople, interreligious dialogue, a way to achieve a better world, improving the recognition of Scouting within the society, youth involvement in other youth organizations, reaching out, and youth involvement. In addition to these open forums, participants were also invited to propose workshops. The following is the list of the workshops that were proposed: Youth Scout representation on international events, Red on Black, the prisoner's dilemma, Safe from harm, and last but not least, youth power. Now at this point, I would like to ask everyone that were present at the World Scout Youth Forum to stand up. Un momento, por favor. You've already given yourself a big round of applause, but now I would like to acknowledge the contribution that these young people made in the 11th World Scout Youth Forum. So please give them a big round of applause for their contribution.